Shar Hagagulim, Jewish Soul Rectification, or the Gates of Reincarnation, chapters 8, Reason to Reincarnate, chapter 9, Who Reincarnates, and chapter 10, Parents and Their Children. Chapter 8, Reason to Reincarnate. This concerns the matter of reincarnating soul as to why they reincarnate. Know that souls reincarnate for several reasons. The first being that a person transgressed one of the laws of the Torah and returns to rectify it. The second is to rectify a mitzvah that it is missing, that is, a positive mitzvah that he should have performed but did not. And the third is that it comes from others to guide and rectify them. This is the idea of ibur, IBUR, spoken about earlier. In the first situation, it can easily sin since it originally sinned. In the second case, it is unlikely to sin, but in the third scenario, it certainly will not sin, having already completed the rectification of his entire nefesh, ruach, and neshama in his own lifetimes. This righteous soul is protected from any sins that might occur in his host body, as discussed in previous chapters. There are other reasons, which are sometimes he will reincarnate to marry his soulmate because he did not merit the first time to marry her. The process of finding and marrying one's soulmate is discussed later in chapter 20. Sometimes he has already married his soulmate, but committed some sin and must return to rectify it, as previously mentioned. Then he will only return alone, as Sabah of Mishpatim has written on the verse, if he came by himself, etc. Shimosh 21:3. Zohar Mishpatim 105b. In the Torah, the verse is talking about a Jewish servant who entered his period of servitude prior to marriage and therefore leaves servitude as a single man as well. However, the sod of the verse is that it refers to any man who must reincarnate because of a sin and does so without his soulmate for a reason that will be discussed in the next chapter. Sometimes he is someone who has merits. Therefore, even though she does not need to reincarnate, she returns in a reincarnation, Basod, and his wife will go out with him, Shemos 21:3. In this case, in the Torah, the indentured Jewish servant enters his servitude as a married man. When he leaves, he does so with his wife. On the level of sod, however, this refers to any man who reincarnates and because of his merit causes his soulmate to reincarnate with him. Sometimes he did not merit the first time to marry his soulmate. However, instead, they arrange a wife for him based upon his deeds. This is discussed in more detail in chapter 20. And from all the souls of the women in the world, none will be closer to him than this woman, even though she is not his actual soulmate. When he sins and reincarnates, he will do so with this woman, even though she is not his actual soulmate. Chapter 8, Part 2, Soulmates in the Klipos. Also know that there are many roots of souls that fell into the Klipos, they and their wives, their soulmates. The males are able to leave the Klipos while in this world, but the females are not able to leave at all until the arrival of Moshiach. They are at this time immersed and given over amidst the female Klipos. That is, the Malkus on the side of the Klipos. I have forgotten her name. If it is Agras, daughter of Mahalos, she is mentioned in the Talmud, Pesachim 112a, or Naama, the mother of the demons. Demons have both angelic and human qualities. Derek Hashem 1.151. All of the female souls from the entire root of Hur, the son of Miriam, will not leave until Moshiach arrives. It seems to me, in my humble opinion, that I heard from my teacher, may he be remembered for life in the world to come, that Aharon HaKohen did not marry his soulmate. Hence his wife, Elisheva, Shemos 6:23, was not his actual soulmate. Being close to the root of the soul of Hur, the son of Miriam, his sister. Aharon HaKohen and Miriam, being brother and sister, Shemos 15:20, apparently were connected as well on the soul root level. Chapter 9, Who Reincarnates? It is one of the 400 questions that is mentioned in the Talmud, Sanhedrin 106b. The question being referred to here is whether or not women reincarnate. That Doeg, in addition to being the head of the Sanhedrin in his time, also commanded the special police of Shaul HaMelech, Saul, the king. He had insisted that David had to be eliminated and brought about the death of an entire city of Kohanim after making a false report to the king about David. And Ahithophel, not only was Ahithophel the leading scholar and counselor of his time, he was actually the grandfather of David's wife Bathsheba. Thinking that he was destined to become king, Ahithophel intended to trick Avshalom, who revolted against his father David HaMelech, into killing David. The Talmud speaks about the punishments of Doeg and Ahithophel, Sanhedrin 106b. It is one of the 400 questions that Doeg and Ahithophel asked in reference to the tower that floats in the air. According to the Mishnah, tower refers to a small portable closet resting on thin legs under an open sky as opposed to inside a building. Ohalos 4:1. The laws of spiritual impurity in regard to such a structure are difficult to understand, and apparently Doeg and Ahithophel were proficient in them, as well as in hundreds of other difficult areas of Torah law. Yet they were still quite evil. The result, says the Talmud, of learning Torah superficially. Know that the attribute of reincarnation applies to men and not to women. This is the salt of the verse. A generation goes and a generation comes, and the land remains forever. Koheles 1:4. That is, a generation goes and a generation comes refers to men who reincarnate, but the land, which are the women who are called land, Malkus, which is feminine, is called land, which is stationary, and therefore women do not reincarnate, as it is known, remains forever, and do not return in reincarnation. There is another reason, which is that men, because they fulfill the mitzvah of being involved in Torah study, cannot enter Gehenna because the fire of Gehenna has no power over them. The Talmud teaches that the fire of Gehenna, the Torah version of purgatory after death, cannot affect someone who fulfills the mitzvah of learning Torah. Hagiga, or Hakika, 27a. As it says regarding Elisha, the son of Abuya, he was one of the four rabbis who entered Pardes with Rabbi Akiva in order to rectify history. However, he failed at his mission, which resulted in him becoming the quintessential heretic called Ache, which means other one, or uh, demoted to blast. He was not punished because he learned Torah, but he did not go to the world to come because he sinned. Hagiga 15b. Hence, he remained in spiritual limbo until Rabbi Meir successfully prayed that his repentance be accepted by heaven. So mote it be, Anna. Therefore they, men, must reincarnate to cleanse their sins in lieu of Gehenna. Women, however, who are not involved with Torah can enter Gehenna and cleanse their sins there, and therefore do not need to reincarnate. However, even though they do not reincarnate, they do come sometimes beside Ibur, with soul sparks that are new and female in women. Also know that it is possible that she comes beside Ibur in a woman, that if that woman becomes pregnant and gives birth to a daughter, the one who came beside Ibur can now reincarnate as an actual reincarnation in the daughter that is now being born to her, and not just as an Ibur. Chapter 9, Part 2, Male Soul, Female Body. Also know that sometimes a man will reincarnate into the body of a woman because of some sin, such as homosexuality or something similar. This woman, the reincarnation of a male soul, will not be able to conceive and become pregnant, lacking the level of Mayan Nukvim, literally female waters. This phrase is usually abbreviated by using the first letter of each of the words, mem, nun, mem nun, and is pronounced mun. It is the Kabbalistic phrase for the holy sparks that ascend to above, usually as a result of Torah learning, the performance, and in particular, the prayers of righteous people, like water from the level of the Sephira of Malchus, which is feminine. This is a crucial part of the world rectification process. Lacking the level of Mayan Nukvim to ascend and receive drops of Mayan Duchrin, literally male waters, which refers to the sparks that descend from Zihir Anpin to the Malkus in order to rectify it by increasing its light and blessing. However, this is only after the Malkuth has already caused her own sparks, Mayan Nukvin, to a sin which is not possible for a woman with a male soul. This woman requires great merit to be this woman requires great merit to be able to become pregnant and give birth. There is no other way except for the soul of a woman of another female to go into her Bisod Ibur with the strength of this partner with her. She will be able to elevate Mayan Nukven and conceive and give birth. However, she will not be able to give birth to sons for two reasons. The first is because the verse says, when a woman will conceive and give birth to a male. Vayachara 12:2. And in this case, the woman is a male like her husband. Therefore, she cannot give birth to males, only to females. In other words, even though on a Peshat level, the verse does not seem to make the birth of a boy dependent upon the gender of the woman's soul, on the level of Sod, it is. The second reason is because since this female soul that entered her did not enter her basalt ibur except to help her to become pregnant and give birth, therefore, since this woman gave birth, and this soul does not need to remain their basalt ibur for no reason, once the host woman has finally become pregnant, the ibur has no reason to remain there as an ibur. At the time of birth it, the one that was besotted board will enter it, the newborn baby, and a female, not a male, will be born. It will be an actual reincarnation and not an ibur, as in the beginning. When the ibur goes into the baby, it will be as the baby's own soul, not as an ibur and additional soul. Thus, for every woman whose soul is a male soul, as mentioned above, it is impossible to give birth to a male, only to a female. The female to which she will give birth will be the actual soul of the female soul that entered her, the mother, originally besought Ibur to help her, as mentioned. However, sometimes, as a result of a great and wondrous merit, it is possible that at the birth of this child, the female soul that came to her, besought Ibur, will leave. It will leave the mother and not go into the baby and make it female, and that a male soul will enter this baby and it will be male. If so, after this, it will be impossible for this woman to give birth again, other that if the female soul returns to her, besought Ibur, as in the beginning. Hence, if the first child was a girl, then the daughter will have to die, since she possesses the soul that originally went into the mother Resort Ibur, so she could conceive, so that maybe the soul will return to the original woman mentioned as in Ibur as before. Then she will be able to conceive and give birth to a daughter, a female, whose soul will be that of the female that came into her besod the Ibur, as mentioned. In this manner, Ibur and reincarnation can occur many times, and this will always be her procedure, or another female soul can come down in order for her to produce another daughter, or for her to get pregnant, then it could leave and a male soul can come in. Uh, these are other calculations that the author knows you will make if you're being told to make. And what are the other calculations, you should say? As long as this woman has the soul of a man, as long as this woman has a soul of man, she will only be able to conceive in this manner. However, if she gave birth to a son, he will not need to die, since the female soul that can be Soribur in the beginning left at the time of his birth, as mentioned. It is therefore free to return as an Ibur in the mother, since the son has his own soul. It will have to return a second time to enter her Besod Ibur, conceive a daughter, and give birth to a female. This also requires great merit. It is also possible sometimes that even though she gave birth to a female, that the daughter does not have to die, for the Ibur to repeat itself so the mother can conceive again, because it is possible for the soul of another female to come and enter the woman mentioned Besod Ibur. This allows the newborn daughter to keep her soul. Then she can conceive and give birth to another daughter, and this new soul can reincarnate into her as an actual reincarnation. Similarly, every time this woman conceives, it will be possible to exchange within her all the levels mentioned. However, in the final case, a tremendous merit will be necessary as well as an awesome miracle, because the precursor to the Sod of Ibur is that no soul enters the body of a man or woman beside Ibur during their lifetimes unless there is a tremendous closeness between them. Therefore, for this woman whose root is a male soul, and he requires the ibud of a female soul, to find a female soul that fulfills all the conditions that needs to come as an ibud for her own sake, as well close to her or similar to her, requires a great merit. How much more so if it must come be a bur once or many times as mentioned, even more so to find many female souls that will fulfill the conditions mentioned. Also, for each one to come beside a bur at one time requires great merit and many miracles. I would argue that this is a good reason for female fraternity, sororities and other connections between women that are uh, covens, etc., that connect you to other female souls to bring down. Chapter 10, Parents and Their Children. This is regarding the types of children that a man can father, and also about students and their teacher. Now, the types of children that a man can father will now be discussed. Know that whether a man marries his soulmate or he marries a woman that is not his soulmate, there is no difference in this matter. That is, he can father children from the sparks of the souls of his root itself, or father from the souls of other roots. Further, know that a father gives a portion of his soul to his sons, and this portion becomes clothing for the soul of his son. Souls are like layers of an onion, with the more spiritual levels of soul being on the inside clothed by the outer layers, helping him and guiding him for the good. For this reason, a son is obligated to honor his father. However, if there is no difference between the soul of the father and the soul of the son other than less than 500 levels, there are countless soul sparks, one higher than the next, as will be explained in chapter 11, and therefore many different levels can exist between one soul spark and another. If, however, the distance between the two is less than 500 levels, then the higher one will not be great enough to cancel out the lower one, and the lesser one will not be low enough to be canceled out by the higher one. Hence, they will both remain in the sun. However, if there is no difference between the soul of the Father and the soul of the Son other than 500 levels, then the portion of the Father's soul will remain the Son's soul even in the days of the Moshiach. However, in the resurrection of the dead, or in the world to come, everything will return to its root and be separated completely. If, however, there is a difference between the two of them of 500 levels or more than 500, then the lesser one will be annulled by the greater one, and they will completely bind together forever to the extent that they will never separate, and the two of them will be one root. Chapter 10, Part 2, Teacher and Student. That was the level the Father with the Son. Regarding the matter of the teacher, in the handwritten text of Rav Chaim Vital, it says, Harav Halmufchach, denoting the student's main teacher. Regarding the matter of the teacher with the student, it has already been explained that the teacher puts spirit into his student. As it says, the spirit, Ruach, of Eliyahu rests on Elisha. 2 Melachim 2:15, like a father does to his son. However, it is a more intense connection since it is forever that the spirit remains with the student and never parts. Besod, the nefesh of David became attached to Yehonason, 1 Shmuel 18:1. This is why respect for the teacher is greater than respect for the father. Just as a person is commanded to honor his father and hold him in awe, so too is he obligated to honor his teacher and hold him in awe. In fact, the measure, due one's teacher, is more than that which is due one's father, for though his father brings him into the life of this world, his teacher who teaches him wisdom brings him into the life of the world to come. Yad Hazacha, chapter 5:1. If the teacher of the student is actually his son, then there are two bonds, one because he is his teacher, and one because he is his son. Therefore, if there is between them a difference of more than 500 levels, in which case the lesser soul will be annulled with respect to the greater soul, and they become joined forever, then the two of them will bond together, the father with his son, because he is his teacher, and the son with his father, because he is his father. The two of them will cling together, this one with this one, and this one with this one, because of these two levels as mentioned. Chapter 10, Part 3. Parental impact on child. Another matter regarding sons born from the father will be discussed. Know that when a man joins with his wife to give birth to children, it is from the energy of the father that the level of encompassing light, Hebrew, Ur Makif, some spiritual lights are too spiritual to be contained by a vessel. Therefore, this level of divine light resides on the outside of a vessel, encircling it, as the word makif indicates. Flows to the sun, and from the energy of the mother, the level of inner light. This is the level of divine light that can be contained inside Pinimi as a vessel, like the light within a body. It is possible that if at the same time of their intimacy that they will sanctify themselves, the two of them by intending for a mitzvah and holiness, or the intention of the two of them will not be for the sake of mitzvah, but for self-gratification and for evil, or the intention of the father will be for good, but that of the mother for evil, or the opposite. If the two of them intended for a mitzvah, then the child will be completely righteous with respect to the encompassing light and the inner light. If the two of them intended for a mitzvah, then the child will be completely righteous with respect to the encompassing light and the inner light. If both intended for evil, the child will be completely evil with respect to the encompassing light and the inner light. If the father intended for good and the mother for evil, then the encompassing light of the son will be righteous, but the inner light evil. Over time, the encompassing light will overcome the inner light and make it completely righteous, since the encompassing light incorporates the inner light within it, since it encircles all the lights within it and can therefore influence all internal lights, and will change it to and will change it to meritorious. If the father intended for evil and the mother for good, then the encompassing light will be evil and the inner light will be good. Over time, the encompassing light will overcome the inner light and make it evil as well. If you want to know which prevailed in him, the energy of the father or of the mother, it is recognizable by his agility and his lethargy. The inner light is contained and unable to move, but the encompassing light on the outside is able to move and bring a person to where he desires. Hence, if you see that a person is as light as an eagle, and runs like a gazelle in all that he does, being quick at his work, the encompassing light from the energy of the Father, has prevailed in him. If he is lazy and lethargic, it indicates that the inner light from the side of the mother overcame. It is all based upon their actions. In other words, if the father had intention for a mitzvah at the time of relations, the son will be quick to do the work of heaven and very great in Torah. If the father intended for quick gratification, then the son will be quick to do work in this world. The result of an evil encompassing light is that a person will be quick to use the physical world to his personal advantage. Likewise, the opposite, if he will be lethargic and the mother had intention for a mitzvah, then he will be lazy regarding work in this world. The result of a righteous inner light is that there will be a lack of interest in the material world. If she did not intend for the mitzvah, then the boy will be lazy with respect to the work of heaven. The result of an evil inner light is that the person will have little or no interest in spiritual matters, and certainly no drive to accomplish in them. With this, the reason can be understood why there are children who are sharp and cannot remain quiet, and there are children who are lazy and very lethargic. This is the salt of what is said regarding Asael, the brother of Yoav, who was extremely light on his feet without limit. 2 Samuel 2:18. And it was known to our rabbi, Zael, he was able to run across the tops of the stalks without causing them to bend. Koheles Rabbah 9:11. Certainly a midrash of Chazal does not depart completely from its simple explanation. There must be a way to understand their words literally, and the matter is understandable from what has been said. All of his ability was because the energy of his father prevailed, and there was no energy from the mother at all. The encompassing light increased in him completely until he was able to fly through the air. Shmuel Betel, the author's son, says, I found another new discussion about reincarnation. It appears to me to be a short version of all that has been said, so I said to include it in here after the previous discussion. It is a way refined wheat from all that has been said. Like refined flour that has been sifted from coarse wheat, what follows is also a refinement of what has been said previously.